Coming up on Theater Talk.
Why not, since more and more people are going to be twittering and getting the stuff from the handhelds? You know, Peter Marks, you go to see West Side Story, and at intermission, you have posted a few lines on your review of the first act. Could you see this profession going that way?
Oh, God, Michael.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation.
Time for a little Critics Corner. We're going to get a sense of what's good and bad out there from, I think, one of the finest critics in the country. Peter Marks has been the chief drama critic at the Washington Post for how many years now, Peter?
7 years.
And the Post's gain was the Times is loss when you left the paper. We miss you in New York, but I read all the stuff on the web now.
That's the glory of the web. You can read everything.
It's
everywhere.
the end of our profession, the newspaper business, but everyone gets to read you.
For the time being, it's okay. Right, exactly.
Right. Well, welcome to Theater Talk.
Thanks. It's nice to be back.
There is a new revival of Ragtime, which is up here from Washington, D.C., because you liked it down there. So we have you to blame for it if we don't like it.
Right.
When you see a production like that, do you write with the idea that, you know what, I can flex my muscle and get this thing to New York?
Absolutely not.
No, you're not being disingenuous.
Absolutely, no, I'm not being disingenuous. It's you really are writing for an audience where you are. I don't really think about New York when I'm in Washington. A Washington audience doesn't really care that much about whether their shows leave Washington and go to New York. The Kennedy Center, which had not had a show that it produced go to New York almost ever, certainly does care, but it was really only, in fact, that several New York producers came down and saw the show and saw the possibility of bringing it, that it moved. No, in fact, you know, you really don't want the responsibility of bringing shows into New York. I like the fact that Washington things are being seen in New York, don't get me wrong, and more of that has happened. Things coming through Washington have been produced in New York in the last several years. But, you know, the bottom line answer is, frankly, whether it comes, whether it doesn't, is really not of much interest to me, except when I can come up and say, gee, how did it work?
How does this production work? Why is this production better than the famous big bloated Garth Verbinski one?
I don't know how you guys felt about the production in '98. I think it was. Yeah. I didn't like it. I thought the show seemed overblown, and it was all this like stand at the lip of the stage and sing your guts out kind of one after another number with some great performers. I mean, you know, Brian Stokes Mitchell and Audra McDonald, Marin Mazzie. I mean, it was a very star-studded cast, but it just felt like an overblown pageant. What they've done with this production, and I think it's a better production, at least I liked it better, was that they brought it down to human scale, and they're trying to tell the stories of these people, these generically named people like mother and father and younger brother, suddenly become more fleshed out people when you focus on the emotion in the piece. As opposed to the other part of the piece, which I don't think still works particularly well, which is this historical figures coming and singing about who they were at the time of the Dr. Rowe puts this all together, Booker T. Washington and Emma Goldman.
The Girl on the Swing.
Evelyn Nesbit, and it all gets to, you know, that sort of gets in the way, in a way, of the story that you're really trying to tell, which is how the changes in America were affecting those people. And I think that, as a result, means more to people today, because I think we're in a similar moment. We're in a moment where we're a confluence of events changing the way people think about race, for example. I think there's an interesting thing that happens in this production at the very end when you see the two main black characters up above everybody else in the beehive of the set singing out, and suddenly you're thinking, this is an America where there is a black man and a black woman sort of above us, sort of like commanding center stage. That has a resonance, I think, and I feel somehow that this may be a better moment for the piece.
It's interesting, though, now, since you liked it in Washington, and I would say one of the reasons a lot of things are coming from Washington, a lot of producers are going down there, that is a direct impact of what you're doing there, because you remind me of the critics like Dick Coe, who was at the Washington Post, and Elliot Norton at the Globe, I think, in Boston. Guys who understood what an out-of-town tryout was, who didn't necessarily kill it in the cradle, but provided guidance to the producer as they were going to shape a show to Broadway. Do you feel that's a role for a critic like yourself?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that. I mean, if you think, West Side Story, which started in Washington. Part of the old sort of style of things trying out in Washington and Boston, Philadelphia. That's the way it was done, way back when. Now they tend to sort of they're created, incubated in like San Diego, which is, way off the map for me, although it's an important theater city. So yeah, I loved that. I mean, having that sort of input at the ground level, and when you're writing your review that you're writing about an unfinished product.
One of the things I love about your criticism is that you were a newspaperman. I mean, you were a reporter before you became a critic. So I feel your writing it's always immediate, and it's old-fashioned in the good sense that you have to make the review an event for the reader. It's not winding around in Peter Marx's critical mind. Was that an influence on you, being a reporter, just having a good lead for writing drama criticism?
Yeah, absolutely. And you learn in the craft of reporting, covering, everything from, car crashes to, cop stories, which is really where I started, to government meetings. You get a sense of what readers need to hear, what they need, because, ultimately, a review is for them. It's not for the actors. It's not for the director. It's not for the three people that you share your deepest sort of theater knowledge with over coffee on Sunday mornings or wherever you do it. It's for these people who want to be entertained and understand and be included in the process to some degree. So you have to jettison sometimes a little of your, a little of that intellectual showmanship that can sort of, I think, cloud a review. And you want to make it for the most people that can possibly absorb something useful from the review. You don't want to make it just consumer stuff and that, the pablum with the go and enjoy stuff.
Yeah, it's not, Peter Marx, thumbs up.
Right, but you want, it's the energy of that experience of going that you want to communicate. And sometimes it's a negative energy, and sometimes it's like, it blows you away.
How did you feel if we went back to the old days where critics had to cover the opening night? Because some people say there was real energy in those wonderful Brooks Atkinson, Clive Barnes review. Even Frank Rich, who was the tail end of that, running from the opening of 42nd Street, where David Merrick announced the death of Gower Champion.
Right.
Do you think it's better for you critics to have as much time you have now to ruminate, or would you like that energy of the opening night review?
I would. I mean, the longer I've done it, the more I would like it to go back to the visceral response, and it actually would be more practical now, given the what we talked about, the web being there,
you've got those
omnipresent.
bloggers going to do it fast.
Everybody's doing it like yesterday.
Yes.
They're all weighing in. And the truth of the matter is, we're also, for better or worse, people don't have as much time to read long reviews. Yeah. So, when you have more time to ruminate, the reviews, you're regurgitating more onto the page, so it becomes like 1,500 words. And so maybe the answer is they should be shorter. If you're writing right afterwards, you're not going to have that kind of time. So maybe 600, these numbers may not mean much to people outside the business, but maybe shorter, faster would be better.
Well, how about this try this on for size. Why not, since more and more people are going to be twittering and getting the stuff from the handhelds, Peter Marx, you go to see West Side Story, and at intermission, you have posted a few lines on your review of the first act. Could you see this profession going that way?
Oh, God, Michael. No.
Follow me on Twitter.
It's bad enough that people if they know you're in the audience and they come up to you at intermission, they go, "So, what do you think?" And you haven't had time to breathe yet and think, "What the hell am I seeing here?" And you're supposed to have come up with your verdict. Now, often you do know after the first act what you think, but you like to. We carry on the idea, this decorum here of thinking you have to see the whole production before you actually weigh in. So I don't think we're really going to do the first song was just, hey, that was a good one. We're up 15 points in the first quarter.
Cut that third number.
Let's not go there. Let's hold off on that. Just a little bit. I think.
I don't know. There's the pressure to blog.
Well, now that you've said it, Michael, if editors are going to hear you, I'm terrified that's what's going to.
Well, I'm terrified if Michael were blogging in his spontaneous thoughts.
You wouldn't want that.
Well, you know, and also there's a famous story, Michael, I know you guys will appreciate, you know, the Brooks Atkinson, when he saw Streetcar Named Desire, which is an over 3-hour production, in those days the deadlines were so early, he had to leave before the end of he did not know that Blanche was carried off to a madhouse.
Yes.
You know, so, and wrote the review of the most important play of the 20th century at the New York Times without seeing the ending. So
It shows it can be done.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'm just proving your point, unfortunately.
We have been through last year, you know, a terrible time for those of us in the newspaper business. Are you concerned about the future of theater criticism, really? I mean, you see arts coverage is shrinking, people being laid off, only the big shows being covered. Is this something that can be reversed, or are we losing aggressive, intelligent arts coverage?
Wow, this is like
in 1 minute
questions.
Twitter.
I think that there is going to be a need, you know, interestingly different from television and movies, which are national. You know, it doesn't matter where you are sitting. You can be in Cleveland or you can be in Chicago or in Las Vegas. You're seeing the same movies. Theater critics are like local reporters. I mean, you really have to be on the scene. You can't do it remotely.
Yeah.
So there is a little more cushion for us as theater critics, and the relationship with your community is a little more intense. I don't know how you feel that in New York as much as you feel it in Washington, but you certainly feel that you're one of the few who have that sort of facility and that kind of audience to do that locally. So I think theater critics are a little more insulated, will be the last to go. That said, I think that space is drying up in print, you know, and that what's going to be interesting, the real issue is, you know, how much of print journalism is wrapped up in the history of the theater, in the fabric of what happens to the theater? How much does an audience need that to understand, you know, forget what happens on the web? You know, is there something tangible about that tradition of newspaper critics, you know, in America going and writing in print and seeing it in that form? I want to believe that, maybe romantically, that there is something that we don't want to lose, that we can't go all the way. It can't be just web-based, because there is, and I think that there will be, you know, local papers that will. I don't think they're going to die completely. At least, you know, I'm hoping.
Peter Marks, the last man standing at the Washington Post. A fine critic. Thanks for coming on Theater Talk, and stop by anytime you're in New York.
A pleasure.
Good to see you.
You
Thanks.
too.
You'll soon be eating apple pie from off a china plate. Pretty dresses, pretty dolls, just wait! For shining in your daughter's eyes and just beyond this gate.
So, Michael, we just have a few minutes left, so we're going to talk about some of the more offbeat productions.
Yes, you know how cutting edge we are. We're always down in the off-Broadway theater world.
That's right.
But in fact, though, Susan, there's a lot of stuff going on in New York all the time that is way beyond Broadway.
And you and I have not been totally aware of.
No, but we have some scouts here
That's
tonight.
right. That's right. We've got Chris Kompanek here from Flavorpill.com. And again, we welcome Aaron Riccio, Editor-in-Chief of the New Theater Corps.
Welcome. All right, so Aaron, tell us, what if I wanted to go to find some little basement theater somewhere with a really uncomfortable seat? What should I see?
Well, I can't promise you uncomfortable seats. If you want to find a really great basement theater that does a lot of great stuff, and a particular show that I loved, it had to be at Under St. Mark's, which had 2 terrific shows this season, but one which I really want to talk about is Clay McLeod Chapman's The Pumpkin Pie Show, which has been running for 11 years now. And for this 11th year, it's a work of monologues. And this year he chose to focus on one of his performers, Hannah Cheek, who performed 3 monologues that are all linked monologues.
What's the theme? What are these things about?
This one was about a school shooting and the aftermath of that school shooting, told from 3 different perspectives. The perspective of the mother of the shooter, the perspective of one of the student's friends, or not really a friend, but so much as she liked him and he never knew it, so he shot her. And then from the perspective of one of the angry mothers of a victim, and tying all 3 of those together in an incredible style that has brought me back time and time again to Chapman's plays. He's actually got a new play coming out now called Teaser Cow, which I'm really excited to see.
What's that about?
You know, it's an adaptation of
3
Greek
cows have
mythology.
been...
Teaser Cow or
Teaser Cow.
Teaser Cow.
Yeah.
An adaptation of
Greek mythology.
And Chris, what do you like that's off the beaten path?
My favorite off the beaten path show is at the Fringe Festival this year, actually, called Viral, and it's this really dark, twisted story about these people who are have this really strange sexual fetish, and they form a website to lure people kind of in, because they get off on seeing people die. So it's like this really twisted kind of euthanasia. And
We're not going to see that one on Broadway anytime soon, I think. But
well, we can only hope.
And what happens in this play, Chris, to these people who have this fetish? And they lure people into lure people to their deaths?
They have, in a way, yes. They have a website. They advertise for people that want to end their lives, and I guess they don't have the resources to get like pills to do it painlessly. They will supply them with the pills if they let them videotape these. And they end up, it's called viral because they broadcast them as like these viral kind of videos. They sell them kind of through the black market. But I mean, it's definitely sensational, but the thing about viral that's really exceptional is that he doesn't focus on the sensational aspects of it. It really unfolds like a naturalistic play, and in the course of it, you really see inside of this woman's life without hearing her backstory about like how terrible her life has been.
Does it explain why these characters have this fetish?
It doesn't explain it in a direct way, but you get to understand that there's something that they really are connected to. And at first, like, you're repulsed by it, obviously, but then you get inside of the characters' minds and you stop thinking about everything outside of the theater, which I think is the most amazing thing about theater, is that you can walk into a theater and then everything can just kind of fade away, and it becomes this singular experience that you've never had before. And going to lots of shows, I find it's really rare to get that.
Are you guys finding stuff out there that's political these days? Are there any young playwrights who are grappling with the war, with the
But
economy?
I would say, isn't political this strain of violence that both these plays are dealing with?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of a political
Sure. I
perspective?
mean, yes. I think more than politics, though, for me, is finding the way in which new playwrights or playwrights that are off the beaten track have a unique voice and a way of telling these stories.
Chris, what can you give me a theater that you like that's off Broadway that you think is consistently doing very good work that people should go down and take a look at?
There's a theater on 23rd Street called The Cell, and it's in this townhouse. And it's basically just 2 floors of a townhouse, and they can configure the audience any way they want it. And there's a play that just closed there, I believe, called The Hypochondriac, which hopefully it will get extended into a larger production because it was just incredible. It's a modern adaptation of The Imaginary Invalid, and it's written by the director and a number of the cast members. And it has this amazingly cohesive feeling to it, the way that they've updated The Imaginary Invalid in a very seamless way. Like, you can't see it like, oh, well, they did this and they did that.
Right.
But it's really, because they take the story and they put it in like modern day New York, and having it in this townhouse in Chelsea, the actual theater becomes the set.
The theater's called The Cell.
The Cell, yeah, it's a new theater.
On 23rd Street?
23rd Street between 8th and 9th Avenue, and it's very reasonably priced, off-Broadway prices,
We'll keep that in mind.
Really a full experience. You don't feel like you're just getting like a fragment of a theatrical experience like you do sometimes in pared-down productions. It's really like a lavish production.
And is there a theater that you'd like to call attention to that's doing work,
I
good
could
work on a regular basis?
I'd love to just mention the Under the Radar Festival, which is done in conjunction with the Public Theater.
And when does that go on?
That happens in mid-January.
So it's on now as we're seeing this,
Yeah, it happens in mid-January. And they've recently started to work with PS 122's Coil Festival in tandem. So you basically get 2 festivals with a ton of international work, which is, I think, the most terrific thing, and one of the things that we can take advantage of in living in the city, is that we see work from all over.
And the ticket prices are reasonable at all these sorts of things that you're talking about.
Under the
too,
Radar's got the most reasonable
Is it the
ticket
Public
prices
Theater to be
yeah,
on?
it's something like $15.
Well, I'll be
$20.
there, Susan.
Oh, you'll be there for sure. Now, any last thoughts?
I want to ask you about The Starry Messenger, Chris, because it's this play directed by and written by Kenny Lonergan with Matthew Broderick. It was the subject of a lot of gossip before it opened because Matthew didn't know his lines and the play seemed to be a mess. Ben Brantley in the New York Times gave it a rave review. What did you think of it?
I was thoroughly and completely disappointed with it because Kenneth Lonergan was a playwright that I followed since I was in high school, and I remember seeing This Is Our Youth right near where the Starry Messenger was, actually. It's probably a couple doors down. And it was such an experience for me to have such a naturalistic, beautiful play.
That was your
on
youth?
stage.
Yeah.
That was my youth,
Yeah,
basically. And seeing the Starry Messenger is the complete opposite. Everything about it was completely without any thought or imagination. It's supposed to be about like this astronomer that has like all these grapplings with like the big questions of life, but it's so passionless. The set is just everything's thrown together.
Yes,
on
and
the
there were some
stage,
directing issues, I'm told.
Well, you know,
It's
it
just-
can be a problem when the director directs his own play. I did feel that about the Starry Messenger, that he couldn't stand back and work out the logistical issues. He was too
How
close
was
to it.
Matthew Broderick?
I thought he was really terrible. It was the second production that I saw of his.
Little old John Simon right here, I think.
He delivers these really bizarre, detached performances that are just devoid of any real kind of emotion and human connection. And
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, you've seen Matthew Broderick perform.
I've seen his work
Remember,
before.
he started out, though, as one of the most naturalistic actors that I remember
he
from my
was
youth, too.
never a
He was very, oh, you
naturalistic
see him in War Games.
Yeah.
You see him in, well, Ferris Bueller's a comedy, but in
Well,
War
he was
Games.
very good in Election. He was
And
one of the-
Election, and in Kenny
yeah.
Lonergan's beautiful movie, You Can Count on Me.
I
Yeah.
think
Matthew was a very naturalistic, very easy, subtle actor, and I agree with you. Now the performances are some sort of weird, detached cartoon-like thing.
yeah, and you can't really like get invested in them. And in this play, it's so important to care about this character, to really get invested in his struggle and what he's going through. And it just falls completely flat. And it doesn't help that it's 3 hours long.
Matthew,
You want to defend your friend
Matthew needs to start playing villains and more tapping his dark side. I think that then his career will just surge. I
Good.
think
Well,
he plays
could
too
be
many
in the
Namby
Spider-Man
Pambies.
5 movie or something
Yeah.
like that as
No,
Dr.
no,
Octopus
no.
or
He
whatever they
should
call
play
it.
really evil people. All right. I want
Why
to see
not,
you do
why not
that.
do
That's
the
advice
musical? Why
for-
doesn't he go in the musical?
Why doesn't he play me? Right there you are.
Well,
There you go.
There's
now
some
there you
casting
go.
advice for you,
Okay.
Matthew. We'll
Okay.
take care of your career.
All right.
Stick with us. You'll be doing just fine again.
That's right. Okay.
That's it. We got to wrap it up.
Got to wrap it up.
All right, say
Okay.
goodnight, Susan.
Okay.
Say goodnight to our critics.
Good night, Chris. Good night, Aaron. Thank you for your insights.
And Chris, where can we find your reviews?
At flavorpill.com.
Flavorpill.com. And Aaron, you're on our website.
Yeah, you can get to us through the website or go directly to newtheatercore.blogspot.com.
Great. Okay. You can read your review, Matthew, on flavorpill.com.
How do we get there?
Good night.
Live at the historic Apollo Theater, 75 years, opening night of Dreamgirls here for Theater Talk. Andrew. It's the opening of Dreamgirls tonight.
It's the opening of what? I'm in the wrong place. Are you kidding? No, I'm supposed to be here for the Zero Mostel show. I'm in the wrong place. But I'm here anyhow. I'll stay.
What did you dream about last night?
You know what? That's funny that you say that because I don't even think I told you. I had a crazy dream.
I had a dream, people, a dream about dream girls, people. Oh my God, I'm singing from Gypsy about dream girls. Anyway.
The pharmaceuticals that I take don't permit me to remember dreams.
That Bernie Madoff wrote me where he's keeping all that money. It was a great dream.
I don't think I remember last night's dream, but the dream the night before was a flying dream, which is a regular dream that I have in which I can fly. And what distinguished the last flying dream was that I could fly outdoors. Mostly I fly indoors, within large spaces. But the 2 nights ago I dreamt about flying outdoors, which was very rewarding.
So we're at the Apollo Theater, 75 years, amazing place. Apollo is a Greek god of music. If you were a goddess, what would your name be? What would you be the goddess of?
My name would be Joan, and I'd be goddess of the homosexuals.
I'd be Calliope, the Greek goddess that I played in Disney's animated Hercules.
I don't know what my name would be. Mariupolis, I guess. And I would be in control of the weather, and I'd make it hot all the time.
If I were a Greek goddess, my name would be Divina, and I would rule over all things divine, all things divinely inspired and victoriously anointed with big attitude and hair to match.
And I am telling you, I'm not going. You're the best man I'll ever know. There's no way I can ever go. No, no, there's no way. No, 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 no way. I'm living without you. I'm not living without you. I don't want to be free. I'm staying, and you're gonna love me. Oh, you're gonna love me.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Alan S. Gordon Foundation, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.